Got the microphone on for now. I'm playing with the music selection, trying to find some decent background music. Let me know how loud it is. Melodic bass. Need something a little more picked up than that. House grooves. You guys should be able to hear me. Let me know if the music is too loud or if I'm too loud. Can you hear me, Victoria? I got the microphone on. Can you hear me or not? So one viewer, two viewers, so that's total count. Okay. Is the music too loud in the background? Oh, you're both on. Wait, how are you both on? Mr. Allen. Hey, thanks for the subscription. That's cool. Showed up on my screen, but not on the YouTube channel, I guess. Alright, as long as the music's not too loud, we'll switch over. Let me bring up a couple of screens here. Going good, Mr. Allen. How are classes? You're reaching the end, I believe, aren't you? Lowering that music down just a little bit more. I want the music super laggy. Uh-oh. Yeah, so I was on a minute ago. I had to reboot. It looked like my computer needed an upgrade. So it downloaded, rebooted, and I got a cryptocurrency miner running when I'm not using the computer, which is another topic for today. That's side jobs. I think everybody should have a side job because you never know what's going to happen with your regular job. 7 months away. Wow, 15-second delay. That's crazy. Holy cow. It might be the Streamlabs that I'm using. Streamlabs is a new platform that let's go with the live screen here. Ta-da! So I wonder if I can flip this. Garrett, you might be interested in this. So this is, there's the infinity screen. No, this is Streamlabs. It has these different screens down here on the bottom left. Like I can go to the starting soon screen and leave that on, and there's actually a timer so you can download widgets that you can add. Like I have a timer widget that I haven't enabled yet, but it'll show up here on the left how many minutes until the stream starts, like a countdown clock. This is supposed to show total watchers, which if you and Victoria, Mr. Allen, that's 3. So this should be saying 3 up here, but it's only saying 2, so I'm not showing how that works. But there's an intermission tab, so if you need to take a break, I'll be right back. Somebody knocks on your door or whatever, you can configure that to show whatever you need in there. There's a be right back screen. So these are just a click of the button, and these come. And this is one template out of a whole bunch of templates. And part of this, anybody else that joins in now or in the future, this is a channel for X-ray techs, which is a great career choice. Obviously, I'm a big fan, but you always have to have something on the side, a side hustle to make you money outside of your regular job. Because for one, you need a break from your regular job, right? For two, you never know when that regular job is going to go down on you. And we never thought that would happen in healthcare. We never thought, because you're always going to need healthcare. You're always going to have sick people that are always going to need healthcare. But what COVID has shown us, and yeah, it is one of the OBS platforms, but it's not the old OBS. But what COVID exacerbated or cranked up the heat on was the fact that we've been understaffed for a long time in healthcare, and we've been understaffed because of the way that model runs, the way profit, even non-profit hospitals run, is you gotta squeeze every last dime, every last penny out of every corner of the hospital, and that is because they want to be profitable. Whether they're non-profit or not, they got to make a profit. And healthcare companies are always going to be reducing the amount of reimbursements, no matter what. They're never going to come out and go, we're going to give you more money this year. It's always going to be a reduction. It's always going to be a bundle, right? Like in X-ray when, or CT, used to be able to bill for a CT abdomen and a CT pelvis. And you got to bill for both and made money on both. But we knew on our side that was one exam. But it was billed out of 2. And then eventually Medicare, and then everybody followed suit and said, nope, that's one test. We're going to pay you for one test. It's now a CT abdomen pelvis. And so the reimbursers, the payers, the billing companies, or not the billing companies, but the insurance companies are always going to be looking for ways to pay less. And the only way to fight that, there's a couple ways. There's raising your prices, which happens, right? Raising the price of healthcare, both through raising your insurance premiums and through raising what you pay out of pocket. Show you some of the other screens here, Garrett. So they're always going to be cutting what they pay, but the hospitals are going to want to make profit. So the only way really to do that is by keeping us underpaid. Keeping us underpaid and keeping us understaffed. And we did not help them in radiology when we started to become multimodality techs. We thought it was because it enabled us to make more, or so it seemed. If I was an X-ray tech and then I learned how to become a CT tech, I got paid a few more dollars an hour. Well, a few more dollars an hour, if you think about it, if you know how much money they're billing on the back end, and techs don't, you don't know until you get to administration. But the money you make on the back end is 1,000-fold what you're paying. I mean, let's just say you pay a tech $400 for the day, or $300 for the day. Even one X-ray, one abdomen X-ray could get you anywhere from $200 to probably $200, $300. I have to go back and look at my billing now, but I don't look at X-ray billing a lot because X-ray pretty much is a wash. You just don't make very much money with X-ray. Where you make money in X-ray is by volume. And number one fan. So I just acknowledged the $5. Let me know how long it took since you did it to see what the lag is. Somehow I got to figure out how to measure the lag. I always thought you guys could hear me right away. But anyways, you know, they're paying you, say they pay you $300 a day as a CT tech working a 12-hour shift. One CT scan chatted out, I'm looking at the screen. One CT scan bills out for $1,500 with no contrast. $1,500 for one CT scan on a 12-hour shift pays the hospital $1,500, and the tech made $300 for the day. Now, I don't know about where you work, but where I work, or where I've worked in the past, you try to crank out as many CTs in a shift as possible. Sometimes 30 to 50 in a shift. And you do the math, the hospitals are making millions. They're making millions of dollars off of what we do as technologists. So when you go from being an x-ray tech to a CT tech and you get excited for that extra $2 an hour, that's peanuts compared to what the hospital is making thanks to you. Completely thanks to you. Could not make it without you. The radiologists can't do it. The nurses can't do it. The receptionists can't do it. It's the technologists who went to school for 2 years to be an x-ray tech. 10 seconds difference now. Okay, well that's probably standard, I'm guessing. This Streamlabs is pulling a lot of juice. I can tell. I went in to the system toolbox and looked at the performance, and once I got the crypto miner to shut down and free up some resources, it was actually running a lot better. But anyway, the line of thought here is healthcare is a great field. Radiology is one of the best fields within healthcare, but you still should have, no matter what you do, a side hustle. And one type of side hustle is what you're looking at right now, doing a YouTube channel. And there are more and more technologists coming out with YouTube channels, and I've been encouraging it for quite a while. I'm a big proponent of getting on there. Let's see, we're talking YouTube, we're talking, I can get out of mine and go to, I think it's favorites. Let me think. YouTube, yeah, subscriptions. So you can see Jonathan Riviera right there. I've been getting into crypto lately. Crypto Lifer here is one of my new favorites to follow. That's why he's popping up on there. But you can see X-Ray Ray, his channel. He's taking his channel a different direction. Or no, that's not X-Ray Ray. It was somebody else. Let me get back into sync here. Yeah, no, I think it was X-Ray Ray. If you scroll his videos, yeah, no, he's still doing X-ray stuff. So for a while, I think he was talking about going to more nutrition. But I'm glad to see he is still. It's been 4 months. I wonder if he jumped over and started a nutrition channel. But X-Ray Ray, I was pumping him. MRI Man is still going strong. He's putting out videos all the time. Just did one 9 days ago. A month ago, if you're an introvert, that was a question I got about a year ago. If I'm an introvert, how could I be an X-ray tech? Would that work? No, I haven't done one on. Well, I've done a blog post, sis, on how to pay for school, like 11 different ways, but not specifically on how to apply. But let me finish this train of thought, and then I'll go to that train of thought. Side hustles, so that you keep your sanity, because if you live and breathe radiology all the time, you'll go nuts. Side hustles help with keeping your sanity, keeping your brain fresh, and making you some additional income on the side, if that's important to you. If it's not, just do it as a hobby, and who cares what it makes you. But what I'm showing you are Kelly Grace, Jonathan Rivera, your X-Ray Tech, Sydney Lira. These are all people that started to blog about their X-ray school discoveries and experiences. Sydney is not as active right now on her YouTube channel because she's kind of getting overwhelmed with the classes, but they all pop into the radiology group, or most of them do, and say, hi, this is the Radiologic Technologist Facebook group, and if you're not a member, you should definitely join up, because you can ask anything and everything there and get a ton of answers. Here's a new one. What's the best online course to take to help pass the boards? That's a very common question. People give the same answers all the time, but it's a good place to go to see what jobs are posted. This is a whole topic within itself, but there are lots and lots of jobs out there for technologists. And if you can handle being a traveler, which I have posts on the blog, we can go there as well. The radiologictechnologist.com is the blog. There are hundreds of articles that I posted about all different kinds of subjects. If you want to look for a particular one, just type it in the search box and look it up. I have a post where I've interviewed people that run traveling agencies. I asked them, this one was Dale Hannigan. He owns his own travel agency. He gives his perspective on how much it pays and why it pays and what you have to go through. And so you can always look up what you're looking for in that search box and go from there. Like Victoria brought up scholarships, and I'm going to say pay for school and see if that doesn't bring it up. 11 different ways to pay for radiography school. So what that, and we talk about picking the right school and even interviewing your school. So many people think that we get interviewed and if we're worthy, we get let in. No, they need us to join their programs or they don't make money. And they need us to score well on our homework assignments or they look bad. And they need us to pass the ARRT boards or they look bad. So these schools, a lot of people feel like we have to bow down to the schools and bow down to the hospitals. They need us, and that's what I hope eventually over time to get out to all the technologists out there is you are unique, you went to school for a specific skill, and they cannot survive without you. The schools cannot survive without you, and the hospitals cannot survive without you. So stop taking their crap. So when it comes to ways to pay for school, there's good old-fashioned savings and helpful parents, work-study programs, hospital scholarships or work contracts, scholarships on and off the campus where you work, university public grants, working while you go to school, which a lot of us had to do, having garage sales, good old-fashioned garage sale to raise some money, and then the nuclear option, I call it, is student loans. I don't recommend them, but sometimes you have to. And then I worked through my associates at Pima Medical. We got a bachelor's at Arizona State. Also got an associate with my sonography program at Gateway, and went on to get a master's from Weber. And I need to update this because I now have a doctorate from Nebraska Methodist. Back to, were there any other questions? I would say, looks like the only question to answer from this week still is where to go, how to pass the boards. I would go back here and say how to pass, because I wrote a big, long, extensive, let me think. Sometimes it's best to go to the sitemap. Where I tried, I stopped updating it because there's too many, but how to pass your boards. Let's see. How to get into a Rad Tech program. Can I work? Common injuries. How to be a traveling. How to get accepted. How to pass your ART board exams. This is a pretty beefy article, and the table of contents help out quite a bit. But it starts off by talking about and this is directed specifically towards Robin here. And Robin, what we're going to do is we're going to take this link and we're going to pop it right in there for you. You start off with the right study technique, and I've researched these actually, and I explain them. Spaced repetition is one way, how it works, the advantage, and how to use it. Force multiplier. A force multiplier is anything that you add. Dr. Jones. Force multiplier is something you do to increase, like you're an X-ray tech, so you're making money as an X-ray tech. A force multiplier to make more money is a side hustle. A side hustle adds more money to your bank account. That's what a force multiplier is. Or let's say you have a refrigerator in your house, and what happens if it ever breaks down? So you put a secondary refrigerator in your garage for overflow or emergencies. That's a force multiplier. I go over different kinds of force multipliers and how they work for studying, and then how to maximize your study time by choosing where you're going to study, keeping a single target of focus, meaning turn off the phone, disable everything so it's not bugging you, go someplace quiet, have the right tools to study, keep your study sessions sacred, don't let people interrupt it, practice and discipline, recovery time. The studies show that you can't just cram it all. Like back in the day, I'll admit I used to go to Denny's. I'd pull an all-nighter with friends, and we'd drink coffee all night long and just cram everything, take the test the next morning, and then brain dump it. That doesn't help you retain the knowledge over the long term. So that method still works for some subjects, and you can do it. But if you need to build upon your subject matter, like positioning 1 and 2 and all that stuff, anything you got to build upon, you want to retain as much as possible. So you need some recovery time in between study sessions. And then there's different review guides. I reviewed the Appleton and Lang, which is one of the review guides that I used. I went over their content outline, their question bank, their practice exams, their strategies. Then I covered Mosby's and talked about theirs. And then I went into the exam day routine that you need to do, because you don't just study and show up. You should go the day before and see where it's at, because the last thing you want to do is to be searching on your GPS. If your GPS is wrong and it's taking you the wrong place, and you're already stressed because you're taking your board exam, and let's say it's at 9 a.m. and at 8:45 you can't find it, now you're more stressed. And if you're late, you're done. You can't get in, and they keep your $450 or whatever they're charging these days. So do your recon, prepare for the day, get your breakfast lined out, that kind of stuff. Arrive 15 to 30 minutes early, practice some breathing or some relaxation techniques. Use the provided headphones that they offer you if that helps you. It helped me block out all the extra sound from people in the room, because there'll be other people that are taking the test with you. Use the scratch pad, flag questions you can't answer. So anyway, this is all for Robin, who asked how to study. I go over all that stuff in here, and what you can do to get the best score possible. So I hope that helps. I'll even jump back and see if I will put in here. I also answered you live. So that's what we do. That's how we operate this. This all works together, right? There's the Facebook group. There's LinkedIn. There's a group on LinkedIn. See if I can get to it without jumping through too many hoops. Should be down here. The Rad Tech Career Discussion, Advancement, and Mentorship. This is probably where I spend the least amount of my time. But LinkedIn is and I've talked about it before, again on the blog. I think I've got some YouTube videos as well. But LinkedIn is a very important way to get a job. Yeah, well, not fingerprinted. So you actually have to get fingerprinted before you even to get into the program. If I remember right, you had to take a profile picture at Costco for like a passport type photo. But yeah, they do check your fingerprints at, what's it called? Oh, not Pegasus. There's one place where we go to take all our tests, and they do a handprint. They take all your stuff. They make you empty your stuff into a locker. It's a kind of a pain in the butt, but anyway, LinkedIn for radiologic technologists. This was a post that I wrote telling you how to set up a LinkedIn account and the benefits of a LinkedIn account. I've actually gotten a few jobs in radiology because my resume was on LinkedIn, And so on LinkedIn is a Facebook group that you're certainly welcome to join. This is more for technologists already in the field. Hey Rachel, how's it going? Thanks for joining. We're just kind of going over some general housekeeping, and then if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to ask. But this LinkedIn group is more for helping other techs get jobs, because I have, I don't know, thousands of connections on here, and I can even pinpoint states and sometimes cities. So if a tech says, I'm going to be moving to Atlanta, Georgia, do you know anybody there? I can hop on here and see who I know in Atlanta, Georgia, find a couple of radiology directors, and then connect you to on a level to discuss things here on LinkedIn. So our network here for Rad Techs is quite extensive. We have the LinkedIn group, we have the blog, we have the Facebook group, we have the YouTube channel. There's Instagram out there that I really don't play around with too much, but through it all, there's probably about 8,000 of us connected already, just through these different mediums. And I actually, I don't want to put the cart before the horse too much, but I actually had a discussion this weekend with this guy right here, Lazar Lazarovsky, who I helped promote a little bit. He is the first tech who came out and wrote us a CEU test to cover all 24 CEUs. This is a big plug for him, and I don't get paid for it either. But he wrote this big, long, it's like a 3-hour test. You get all 24 CEUs, and he's only charging $20 because he's a tech, and he gets it. You remember in the past how much, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get these continuing education units, right? Finally, a tech stepped up and took the time, because you got to write it and submit it and get it approved, and it's a big pain in the butt. Enough of a pain in the butt that I've never been willing to do it. And he wrote this thing for us, so now we can get all our CEUs for $20. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lazar. But I was in discussions with him about this network that I've created to help future techs, the students, right, and the techs that already, and administrators who stop by from time to time. We talk on here. This thing has a value in the 6 figures at this point. And so I was excited to hear that all this time and effort that I put into this blog, because I've been blogging for about 3 years, just brain dumping everything I know on that blog. And then I created the YouTube channel probably a couple years ago, and started just kind of, it started off as just dumping my blog posts onto there. And eventually I got tired of the format, the methodology that you have to do to turn a post into a video. Content Samurai was what I was using at the time. It was a way to create slides based on your posts and create a slideshow that would play kind of like a PowerPoint, and turn them into videos. And that's what you'll see in my earlier videos are pretty much my blog posts. I started out talking about clinical settings. This is just me in my bedroom with some eraser boards behind me. And then I did one video on just kind of everything. What our world of radiology looks like, all the different modalities, how to get to them, why I chose radiology, and I kind of explain everything. The funny thing about that particular video is the microphone was screwed up. And so I have this horrible sounding voice in that video. But that is my highest viewed. And it's not a lot, it's only 15,000 views. But if you see all my other videos, 88 views, 773 views. This isn't, I'm not doing this for riches, obviously. There's only about 350,000 x-ray techs that are licensed in the United States. So that we're not talking about, people that blog about kayaking, and there's millions of kayakers in the world or whatever. This is specifically for a small niche group of people, and it's the Rad Techs. And it's really geared a lot towards the x-ray techs and the people interested in becoming an x-ray tech. It's not geared so much towards CT techs and sonographers and MRI techs, although we talk about it all the time because it's a part of our group. But for the most part, I created this channel 3 years ago to get information out there to everybody who's not in the field yet, who wants solid information, because it wasn't out there. The websites that were giving information were garbage. They had this financial model of, the more people we get to our website, the more money we make in advertising. So they would just say anything and everything, keyword spamming, all the black hat techniques just to get people to the site, so that they made money on advertising. And they were calling us technicians, and they were saying there was a 3-month x-ray program, all this garbage, and it's still out there. So we still get people confused about how long x-ray tech school is and all that kind of stuff. Hello, Juana, thanks for joining the channel. So the channel initially started out just talking about my posts, right? If you went back to my blog and you went through some of my older blog posts, it just started out with what is the difference between a rad tech and a technician, and how should you write your resume, and what does a typical day look like in the hospital or a typical day in the clinic. Successful interview strategies for people interviewing for Rad Tech School. And I took those and turned them into videos. And then I decided to start doing some live streams. And those are so much easier to do because you don't have to edit them. The other ones are very time intensive. And to spend a lot of time on a video that gets 134 views is not as worthwhile as just getting on and talking about it. Plus, this way, anyone that wants to get on and ask questions, I can answer them in real time. And I try to go over here, which I probably should do again, to the group and announce that I'm live again right here. So let's change this one, because that's the old link. I went on and my computer was having all kinds of issues, and I had to reboot it, let it update, and do all kinds of stuff. So where am I at? So this is my live now. There's my link. Hop back in there, paste it again, save it again. And so this is something I'm going to try to do fairly often, at least once a week. Get on, talk about current events, talk about the market. Something that I noticed the other day was a nurse on Reddit. There's a nursing subreddit, which is another, a lot of you don't know about that either. If you go to Reddit and you go, so Reddit, if you don't know, Reddit's just a place to go talk about different things. It's another social media platform. And if you go for, or just type it up here, just type radiology. There is a subreddit called Radiology. So a group on Reddit is called a subreddit. And this subreddit has been here for several years, and it's moderated. You can't post HIPAA stuff in there. Everywhere, my group, every group, you got to keep the HIPAA stuff out of there. But this is a great place to go and ask questions. A great place to go and see cases. People come here and complain. A lot of memes on here. I don't know. Foreign objects are still hilarious to people. I'm kind of long over that, but so here is another source. I didn't start a subreddit because we already have radiology. It wasn't worth starting an 18th social media platform when I barely even keep up with the Instagram account. So I was on subreddit, and there was a nursing subreddit that caught my eye. I don't know if I'll be able to go back and get to it now. It's probably been too long. You sort by new. Have received newer my license, what kind of impact inside the bit. So here's all the nurses saying, oh, we're getting hammered, we're getting killed, we're no supervising nurses, schools need nurses. But I was on here. The hospital system will collapse. Let me find it. Potential change of career because they're tired of it. And you do get spam, you know, just like anywhere else. The one I'm looking for was basically a cry for help, saying who's going to tell the public that healthcare is collapsing. And it was, let's see. All right, I'm going to move this for a second, and I'm going to jump to it a different way here. Let's see, profile, comments. There it is. I found it. So here it is. Who is going to be the one to tell everyone else healthcare in the United States is collapsing? I've read the threads, spoken with friends and colleagues, read news articles, and see what's happening in my system and state. I'm not sure if it would hurt, help, or it matters either way, but I feel like someone should be telling others. Healthcare is collapsing. There aren't enough of us to keep this going. There's no one to replace us. Is there anything we can do? This is a battle cry from a nurse. And the nurses, if you haven't been in the field for very long, are usually the last to cry. Let me see, how do I want to phrase this? They're not the last to beg for help, that's for sure. But when, let me put it this way, when the help is not coming for the nurses, that's a problem. Because if anyone is the favorite child of the healthcare system, it's the nurses. You could argue it's the doctors, and they're certainly privileged in many ways. They get their own parking, they get their own food in their own lounges, in their own departments, free food. Like they're not getting paid enough for what they did, and that's a whole other topic. But nurses, when you start seeing nurses saying we're in trouble, you got to take note, because nursing has been able to outflank all of us in terms of improving their career options for one reason, and that's because they have come together as a group and used strength in numbers to get done what they need to get done. And you don't see that for radiology. You don't see it for respiratory therapy. You don't see it for physical therapy. The nurses, and this is because there's a lot of them, and there's a ton of nurses in the United States, way more than there are x-ray techs, but that doesn't mean we can't duplicate the system. But here's my point. Look at nursing and the size of their lobby in Washington and what they've been able to do over the last 20 years. They, hi Anna, they have created nurse anesthetists, which is a mid-level provider in between the anesthesiologists and the nurses, right? When that first came out, the anesthesiologist said, whoa, 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 you can't infringe upon you can't be taking our money. You can't think you can do what we do. We are doctors and you cannot do what we do. And how many do you know now? They're everywhere. And the anesthesiologists finally embraced them because there's not enough anesthesiologists out there to get the job done. They finally realized we can make more money with the nurse anesthetist. We'll hire on 5 of them, put them out there in the hospital on the shifts we don't want. We can go play golf. We'll still make a piece of their pie because we own them. I mean, there's all kinds of financial models to how it works, but it's just like owning a business and hiring somebody else on to run the shop for you while you're out. You don't pay them as much as you get paid, so you're still making money on the shop even though you're not working in the shop. So nurses are nurse anesthetists now because of their giant lobbyist group and all the power that they yield. And then they said, let's create another mid-level provider and we'll call it the nurse practitioner. And we've seen where that's gone. So now you've got another mid-level provider. And the doctor said, no, the nurses, they can't do what we do. Only doctors can do what doctors do. Now nurse practitioners not only got that position created, but they lobbied to where they don't even have to report to a doctor. So a nurse practitioner, who's very similar to a physician assistant, they both can round on patients, see their own patients, write prescriptions, but a PA cannot go work by himself and cannot go open his own clinic. A PA That's why you never see a PA, or shouldn't see a PA, running an emergency room without a doctor nearby, because PAs have to report to a doctor. Nurse practitioners don't. They can run a clinic all by themselves. They can own their own doctor's office and be their own provider. And as if that's not enough, the lobbyist group came back and said, now let's create a doctorate program called DNP, Doctorate of Nurse Practitioner. Then they have to call us doctors, and we can still work for ourselves. And now we're being called doctors, but we're nurses and we're nurse practitioners. So anyway, my point is, these guys have all the protection in the world, these nurses. And for this nurse to come out on the screen here and say, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Somebody needs to tell the public that healthcare is headed towards a collapse, should alarm everybody. Although, the other side of this is not new. We have seen this coming for decades. We just didn't know it was going to get this bad, and we should have addressed this a long time ago. And where radiology comes into this mix is radiology techs have been accepting too small a pay for doing too much work, and basically been getting stepped on for decades. If you stop and think about what we do as technologists in the hospital, nobody else can do it. And I know that sounds flowery and rosy, but if you think about these nurses that typically get paid more than we do. Sometimes we're on par depending on what modality we're in. I mean, an MRI tech can make more than a nurse. But if the nurses went on strike, that would affect the hospital, because there wouldn't be anybody to do what they're doing. But if you break it down by skill level, like let's just reduce this down to the bare minimum. You've got an ER out in the middle of nowhere, but a 10-bed ER, right? One of those 20-bed hospitals that has 10 beds in the ER and 10 beds for inpatients, and they turn people over pretty quickly. If you have a doctor, a nurse, and an X-ray tech, and a respiratory therapist, and somebody out front in admissions letting them in the door, out of those 4 people, if the respiratory therapist left, who could do that work? So respiratory therapists can intubate, doctors can do that. Respiratory therapists take blood gases, doctors can do that. Probably some nurses could do that. Respiratory therapists do the ventilators. Nurses used to do that for a long time before respiratory took it over. There's nothing that a respiratory therapist does that a doctor or nurse can't do. Now let's say the respiratory therapist stays and the nurse leaves. What does the nurse do that nobody's? The doctor can do everything a nurse can do. The doctor can prescribe, the doctor can administer the med. The doctor can put a bedpan under them. There's nothing that a nurse does that a doctor can't do. And then the X-ray tech, we're trained in taking vitals. We can do pulses and blood pressures and temperatures. I mean, if that nurse leaves, I hate to tell you, nurses, but it can survive. The doctor leaves, we're kind of in trouble. In that case, there's nobody to make the final diagnosis. Everything else gets done, but there's nobody to make the final diagnosis. So really, you're talking doctors and rad techs. When that rad tech leaves, nobody knows how to use that equipment. I guarantee you, nobody. No respiratory therapist, no nurse, no doctor knows how to go fire up that portable and wheel it down to the ER, position it correctly, at the correct angle, what to push, what techniques to push, and then take it back. And if you're still on CR, you got to run it through the machine. If it's DR, you got to know how to get it to the PAC system, nobody. So that's what I hope you techs out there understand, is just how valuable you really are. So how do we fix this problem back here? Not by running out and telling everybody we have a problem. That's what this nurse is. Who's going to run out and tell everybody? Doesn't matter. What is the general public going to do to help us? The only thing that's going to help this situation is treating the employee properly so that they take care of who? The patient. Because without the employee, there is no patient care. And if the employee's not taken care of, what starts to happen? Worse and worse patient care. And then eventually, what? Either the patient goes somewhere else, or the hospital closed down because they're not making any money because the patient is going somewhere else. My point is, there's nobody protecting Rad Techs as a group. And while we do have some oversight organizations like the ASRT, we don't have anybody that fights for us legitimately. And the only way I can see is to unionize. That's the big word, union. Get a union going at your hospital and get your butts protected, because that's what unions are for. Now, union has a lot of stigma from the past, and I've been in one, but not in healthcare. There's stigma about unions because you have to pay dues to be a part of it, but that's the same with any organization. And there's been a lot of stigma in the past that the unions just protect the lazy. Well, I can tell you, I've never had a job as an administrator where somebody didn't complain to me that so-and-so CT tech is the laziest person and never gets in trouble and they should have been fired years ago. I hear that everywhere I work. How come that person never gets in trouble when they do stuff wrong? So you're always going to have those whiners that complain about somebody else. But I'm telling you, if our hospital, if our Rad Techs would unionize and get somebody to protect them and to hold the healthcare system accountable for a decent level of pay and decent benefits, we would be better off as a group, and then we could provide the level of patient care that we need to provide, and that'll hold the healthcare systems accountable to keeping our departments properly staffed and keeping our benefits at the appropriate level. Like in this recent past couple of years of COVID, how many of our techs got forced home on a shift because there wasn't enough work because the government said you can't do anything that's not emergent, and the hospital said you got to go home, and if you want a paycheck you got to burn your own PTO. Burn your own PTO. That PTO was earned to enjoy a day off when I need it, not to pay me so that you don't have to because you don't know how to run a department. So with a union at your back, that would no longer happen. They would still have to put you on your shift, and they would still have to have you in your seat doing your job. And there's plenty of other things you can be doing. I mean, if you have to, and there's no x-rays to do, you can go help out in the ER. We've all done that. Go help take blood pressures or whatever. Do we want to? No. But are we trained to? Yes. Would we rather be doing something to help out? Yes. So I'll get off my high horse about this pending doom of the healthcare crisis, because yes, it's there, and yes, it's going to get worse, but it's not because of COVID. It's because of the greedy hospitals and the board of directors or the shareholders or whoever the real puppet masters are controlling all the C-suite, who then controls all the directors. And I can tell you, there are directors who want to do the best for the department, but are being told, you do what I say or you lose your job. I certainly heard that as a director. I was told that I had to buy certain equipment that I was against buying. And then I was told by my senior director that I had to go tell my staff that I wanted to buy that equipment and tell them why I wanted to buy that, like I'm championing it. And I ended up walking out. I'm not lying to staff because you want to save a few bucks by going with an inferior brand. So I'm just telling you, you don't always see this stuff from the front lines, what happens behind the scenes. But if you want to start turning this thing around in your favor, you're going to have to get together as a group and start unionizing at your hospitals and protecting yourselves, because nobody else is going to do that for you. Let me jump through and do some shout outs to everybody that said hi. I've been kind of on a tirade, rant, whatever you want to call it. It's a Sunday. I'm grateful for everybody to be in here. I'm going to try to do this every week. We can get together and chat about whatever you want to chat about. I'm going to go through the week's news on radiology, Aunt Minnie, what's going on, things like that. We'll go through the Facebook group and see what the common questions are. So Rachel's on. Is there a set amount of CEUs you have to get, or does that vary by state? No, that's set by the ART. That's for your license. Sorry it took me so long to get to that question. That was something I was going over. Where was I? LinkedIn. Lazar right here in our group. Go to our LinkedIn group and join it. Radiologic technologists. Here, I'll do this. pop that in. See if I can get to. I can't link directly from the Streamlabs software. I have to do it here. That was something I was going. Alright, pause that, pop that, drop that in here, and I can put it right there. So, jump on into the LinkedIn group. Radiologic Technologist Career Discussion and Advancement and big old long stupid title. But Lazar right here, he's offering 24 CEUs. That's what you need, by the way, Rachel, every 2 years, 24 CEUs. And I won't even get into the CQR thing, which is new that we all have to do now. But, and that's if you got your license after, I believe, 2011. 24 CEUs for 20 bucks. Trying to tell if that's my music or my playing in the background. Weird. So, go there, get your 24 CEUs for 20 bucks. Lazar's a good friend of ours. He's a tech. He's also a real estate agent, which I picked up in the past year. If you were on earlier, I was talking about side hustles. All of you need side hustles because one job, no matter what it is, being a tech, whatever, you need something else to take your mind off what you do. You try to make a hobby. Take a hobby, go do that, step outside of your world and refresh your brain. One of the things I picked up was, and this all comes from my friend Scott Berry. And Scott's an X-ray CT tech who I worked with for many, many years. He previously was a cop, and he ended up coming through the X-ray program and was a student where I was working. And I said, you know what, jokingly, I said, what, are you sick of being shot at, bud? What's the deal? And he said, no, I need a second skill in case the first one, something goes wrong or I just get sick of it or whatever. It gets too dangerous, whatever. And at the time, I was naive and I said, oh yeah, I've kind of done that. I've got an X-ray license and I went to ultrasound school. So I could do one or the other. And he said, no, you're not tracking me. Those both fall under healthcare. So if anything ever happens to healthcare, you're stuck. And I thought, well, what, naive, what can go wrong in healthcare? Right? People are always going to need healthcare. Well, now we've seen it, right? COVID came along. The government said, shut everything down. All you can see are emergency patients, and you have to see them out in the parking lot, and you have to triage them. And if they're not dying, you got to send them home. And that shut down all our departments, right? No mammograms, no elective surgeries. Shut us down. So even though you had a license in X-ray or if you're dual modality, it didn't matter if you can't do exams. And so I took that to heart, and about a year ago, like Lazar, I set up for my real estate license and I started doing real estate. And it gives me something outside of healthcare. It's completely unrelated. I don't have to think about anatomy and all that kind of stuff. But Lazar is also a realtor, but he is a tech who sat down, and I mentioned this earlier, I think, but he sat down and wrote us an exam. It's like a 3-hour, it takes you 3 hours to do it, but it's a 3-hour exam that gets you all 24 credits for 20 bucks. He's not trying to make money on it. He's just like so sick and tired of paying $300, $400, $500 because I wait till the last minute. And he writes a new one every year because you can't use the same one more than once. But go there, Rachel, to grab your, if you're even still on, go there to grab your CEUs. So going through the chat, shout out to Juana Beltran, Anna, thanks for all you do, your channel, your story, keep me going. I'm also close to sleeping in my car between classes and work. Did you hear me say I did that? You may have, because I probably mentioned it more than once. But, it's funny. I wish I had $1 every time I heard somebody say, I was going to go to X-ray school, but I have bills to pay. I had to work, or I have a family to take care of, or this and that, excuse. I was working the night shift to pay the bills at a hospital as a health unit coordinator. And if I was lucky, I'd get let off early because the nurse running the unit knew I was going to school. They'd let me off at like 4:35 a.m. and I'd go out in the car and sleep for 2 hours and report to my clinicals at 7 a.m. and do clinicals till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then try to run home and sleep, or sleep there at the hospital before coming back on to my midnight shift again. I think I did like the 10p to 7a or something like that as a health unit coordinator. So I feel you, sleeping in the car is rough. There's usually sleep rooms for the doctors. I found that if you ask the right person, you can usually use that if you're a student or an employee. And I've slept in many a department. If you're the only one there, you'll know if you can sleep or not. Find a place, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Anna said, what's your advice to retain all the information we are learning? It's so much info. It's such a short amount of time. Well, first of all, you're not going to remember it all, and you don't have to remember it all. Maybe what you mean is in order to pass the test. Hey, V-Raw, thanks for stopping by. Anna, we're talking about how to retain it, It'll just come to you. Don't worry about it. If you need to write it down, write it down. Like you're, I don't know if you're probably a student. So my guess is, like my techniques when I was a student, I used this little bitty, I still have it somewhere. It was a little phone book about that big that I kept in my pocket. It was like an accordion phone book. Accordion, what would you call that? Well, it was an alphabetized accordion file that I would write, like I'd go under the C tab and I would write portable chest or chest portable 90 at 5 or whatever. And sometimes I'd even write the text name that told me that, because what you'll find out as a student, yeah, what you'll find out as a student is Bob will say, do your chest 90 at 10 with a grid, or 100 at 20 with a grid or whatever. And then you'll get to the next text, Susie, and she'll say, no grid, 90 at 5 or whatever. And you're like, well, they're like, why are you using that technique? So I go, because Bob told me to do 90 at 5 with no grid. Not that that helps your situation any, because that's kind of a form of I told you so. But, at some point, you got to kind of push back a little on, hey, I'm not just making this crap up. One of you taught me this, and that's why I do it. So try to be a little more gentle on me if I'm not using the exact technique you are, because that's what I was taught to do. Because as a student, you're going to get taught all these different techniques from all these different texts. But what your job is in the end is to figure out what works for you and use that, and that's your technique. Nobody says you have to use a specific technique on every single chest x-ray. So, when you're worried about what you're going to remember and not remember, just do your best to retain what you can. Maybe do a review. I used to do a weekly review and go over everything, because I don't know if you were on earlier or not, Anna, but this on my blog here, how to pass your ART board exams, there's a lot of techniques on here that I list that help you remember things, and one of them is the spaced repetition, where you study for, and the Pomodoro technique kind of chimes in on that as well. The Pomodoro technique is just setting an egg timer, any timer, for 20 minutes. And after you study for 20 minutes, you get up and take a 5 or 10 minute break, move around, stop thinking about what you just studied, and then come back. And studies show that you retain more that way versus the old school way where we used to just cram all night long and then go take the test in the morning. You lose 90% of that. So with the Pomodoro timing technique of getting up every 20 minutes and just, even if it's just walking around for 5 minutes, you retain more. And then there's also spaced repetition and other techniques in here that you can do to help you remember more. That is the article. I'm always pointing the wrong way. The monitor's over here, but on the screen it's over here. Oh, look, there's Macy. That's one of my little girl's career day a long time ago. She's 22 now, I think. 22. Career day, I remember taking scrubs, finding the smallest scrubs I could find to try to put on her and give her the little surgical hat. But everything you need to pass your boards is in here. It's about how to pick your study sanctum, your back cave, whatever you want to call it. It's about what to do the day of, what to do the day before your test, different methods. And this is all scientific stuff. This isn't just I made it up. I researched what helps us remember the most for the longest. So check that out, and if you want, what I can do is grab that and post that into the comments section, so you have a link directly to that. And then I always have to figure out how to get back to where I was. Oh yeah, the blog. So back to the chat. Um, I hope that helps out on how to retaining. Victoria, he knows all about sleeping in cars between school and clinical. Yep. So Victoria is my oldest daughter. Victoria is healthcare from. She probably just can't get away from it because she saw me and my wife doing it for so long. She was going to do the CNA, LPN, RN pathway, but she's kind of taking a second look at that. We're all kind of taking a second look at that. I've often wondered if I should have been a nurse. And you may at some point wonder, should I be a nurse? Because we see them so pampered, right? That'll piss a lot of nurses off, right? Truth hurts, right? They get away with murder. I probably shouldn't say that word. But Nurses Week. Do we get Rad Tech Week? But do they get Nurses Week? Oh, yeah. Heck yeah, Nurses Week. Can't go without celebrating Nurses Week. But there's something to that, right? It's a 2-year program. X-ray is a 2-year program. Nursing is a 2-year program. And if you take the right prereqs at some programs, you come out of them with a bachelor's degree. You got your BSN and you got your bachelor's of radiology. But the bones, 2 years and you're an RN, and 2 years and you're an RT. And they both make about the same unless you're at a place that sorely underpays. And the ASRT puts out an annual survey that asks everybody, report what you're making around the country. And they release that, but you can't see it unless you're an ASRT member and you pay the dues. But I do have that listed on the blog as well from a couple years ago, where I compared what everybody said they're making to the cost of living index in every state, and I showed you which states will leave the most money in your pocket. Because people, you see it on the Facebook group all the time. How much are they paying in California? Oh, $55 an hour for a CT tech. Well, I'm going to go do that. Look at how much they're paying, a $15 hamburger, or $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. Doesn't matter what they're paying if the cost of living is right up there too. You want a place that pays a lot and doesn't cost very much to live in it, and you enjoy the leftover. And so I have an article on that. It's always a pain in the butt to find. So one of the easiest ways to find my articles is just to use the sitemap, because I kind of went by title. Best states to work in as a rad tech. So there's a short list, just so you know. But I took the scores, the pay from all the states based on the ASRT ranking, and took the cost of living index, here, and I made a spreadsheet out of it, and compared and said who lets you keep the most money. It's the MERIC, that's what it was. Missouri Economic Research and Information Center put out the cost of living index, and I ranked them. So that's there for you if you're wanting to know where to go to keep the money in your pocket. But back to the comments section. Nog, rad techs might play the role of radiologists one day. Well, that's interesting, right? Who would make the best radiologist? A tech would, because we already know how to be a tech. They don't know what we do, but we could go to medical school and be a radiologist. And anyway, also an X-ray tech makes the best RA, radiology assistant, which is a horrible name because it makes you sound like you're just the person that puts somebody on the table. But an RA or an RRA, a registered radiologic assistant, or registered radiology assistant, RRA, is the mid-level provider. It's not enough of a mid-level provider, in my opinion. Let's see if I can find, where are they? Darn it. Let's go back to the sitemap. And let's find the old Control F, RRA. What is a registered radiology assistant? So an RA is, they used to just call them super techs. But an RA can do a lot more than a technologist, but not as much as a radiologist. And the original, if you go back to that sitemap right above the RRA, was this RPA, the Radiology Practitioner's Assistant. That program was at Weber State. I was in that program and had to drop out because my hospital closed. and it was the radiologists at that hospital that were backing me. But anyway, I was reading, I was doing wet reads. I was doing basics, basic reading chest x-rays, and I was doing lumbar punctures and upper GIs. Radiology desperately needs a mid-level provider, just like PAs and nurse practitioners for the physicians. There's less and less people choosing radiology as their primary specialty or their specialty in medical school. And anyway, RPA closed because they didn't get enough backing. They puttered out there for like 19 years trying to make that program work. And you should go read the story about it, because really I think it was the ASRT came in and said, we want to see how this program works. And then they took it and started their own and called it the RRA. And then eventually the RPA died. And now you have the RRA, which is backed by the ASRT and backed by the ACR, which is why it's still around today, where the RPA did not have any backing and was fighting tooth and nail, clawing our way into trying to get a mid-level provider. And this is what I'm talking about when I talked earlier about unions. When you don't have a large enough group behind you, you fail. The RPA program did not, and that was some of their problem, some of their fault. The person who was running the RPA program at the ground level was kind of not getting along with the ASRT and the ACR and those people. And so they said, fine, we'll start our own, and they did. And because you have the ASRT and the ACR, which is all the radiologists, American College of Radiology, you have the RRA program. And now these RAs or RRAs can get licensed and can do, they can check medical history. They can, well, we can all do that, but they can do a lot of things that a regular tech can't do. They can't read. That was one thing that the ACR always said. Nobody gets to read but us. So the RPAs were starting to, and as long as the radiologists that you worked for allowed it, you could do it. But that program failed, and as an RA, you cannot read, but you can do lumbar punctures and things like that, even if it's to the point of setting the lumbar puncture completely up and locating it with your fluoro or whatever and marking the spot, and then texting the rad, we're ready. The rad will walk in, place the needle, fluid starts to come out, and the rad leaves, and the RA takes over from there and completes the whole rest of the exam. So we're on our way to a mid-level provider in radiology, but there's still a lot of issues with reading. There needs to be relief, and AI is going to replace it if these rads don't let the RAs do it. AI is already starting to read chest x-rays. So, you know, whatever. That's a whole other topic. So, where are we at? We're in the chat. Rad techs may play the role of rad someday. AI is going to get there. So anybody that's worried about AI replacing our jobs or the radiologist's jobs, it's not going to happen. You're always going to need a human there to watch what's going on, especially in healthcare when a human life's on the line. You're never going to be able to turn a room over. You may, like, you've got robotic instruments. You've got the Da Vinci now, right? They can do heart surgeries. It's not doing it on its own. There's some cardiologist in some room remotely looking through, and he's had hundreds, if not thousands of hours manipulating that robot using things that aren't going to die to learn how to use it before he uses it on an actual patient. So you're always going to need a human. Now here's what's interesting, and I've kind of had this theory for a while. If you really want to help with the problem in healthcare, one of the ways to help right now with not having enough techs is you could, and I believe it was Siemens that had this remote workstation like for MRI. They had the workstation, picture sitting at your desk with your keyboard and your monitors, and in front of you is the window, and inside that room is your MRI patient. Siemens had a remote control room that could run 3 MRIs from the same room, same control board. So you could have me here in Idaho sitting here doing a scan on a patient, and then in Oklahoma, the MRI tech is out with COVID and there's a patient scheduled. When I'm done with my patient, I can schedule that patient to be immediately after, and anyone with a little bit of training can put somebody on the table. You have to take them through how to not wear anything metal in there and get them certified to walk into zone 4. but somebody could set them on the table and set them up for you, and you could actually do that MRI remotely from anywhere and do that scan. So that hospital didn't need that MRI tech. And at some point, maybe it's just locally through the state or even third world countries, whatever. You can have one MRI tech running scanners in 3 different locations. Now, of course, you don't want to be doing them all at the same time, because then you could run into issues, liability. But that's an example of AI sort of helping us do our job more efficiently, helping more patients. But of course, it's always better to have techs on site doing the work. So I digress back to the chat. No, nurses. I didn't say nurses will take a Rad Tech job. Nurses could never do what we do. Where did I lose control of the chat? Nog said, "Wait a minute. Nurses might take the job of a Rad Tech." No, they're never going to take. They don't want our job. Nobody wants our job, and they can't. They're not going to go back to school for 2 years to learn how to do what we do. Nobody can do. I did a whole segment on that earlier about how you can't get by without the X-ray tech. Nobody can do that work. You can get by without the nurse. You can get by without respiratory, because a doctor can do both of those, and a nurse can do respiratory work. But nobody can run the CT scanner. Nobody can run the MRI scanner except a dedicated tech. And then Vera hopped on. And then Anna, I did hear you saying it. It really makes me feel better. I also work night shift 3 days per week. It's amazing because I can study at work, but holy moly, it is hard on the body. Oh, so you do know it shortens your actual life expectancy, right? It just does. There's scientific studies. Working the night shift, doing anything, actually shortens your life expectancy. And I don't know if it's circadian rhythms. We have to clean up poop too, buddy. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Yeah. Darn it, I squirreled. Anna, hard on the body. So, pros and cons, right? Night shift means nobody's bugging you. I love night shift. That's when I got all my studying done too. When I went back to school for 20 years. Studying on the night shift, sleeping on the night shift, watching YouTube videos on the night shift, you name it. I had a friend, another X-ray tech, who used to use one of our other rooms to repair computers at work. He was a part-time computer repair technician. This was 20 years ago, but that was his side hustle. If we didn't have anything to do, he would start tearing down a computer in another room and fixing it and whatever. So night shift is good for a lot of things, but you have to make sure that you're on the good side of management and that you don't have any narcs running around any of the other departments, because you never know when people are going to pop in on you and go tattle. And I'm not saying do something you're not supposed to be doing, but I'm saying I may be in my department sleeping because there's nothing going on for 3 hours, and some nurse from a floor stops by at 3 a.m. to see if I got the order for the 5 a.m. chest x-ray, and she sees that I'm sleeping and she wants to go, "Hey, I can't sleep, so you shouldn't be able to sleep." First of all, mind your own business. Second of all, if I've got it worked out with my boss, what's it any of your business? Just don't worry about what everybody else does. But you definitely want to make sure, and you can straight up say that to your management. Say, "Look, if I've been getting my butt kicked all night and there's nothing going on, can I close my eyes for a few minutes, or am I going to get fired?" And that's going to be up to your boss. Your boss may be hog-tied and say, "No, absolutely can't sleep on the shift. Find something to do." Then you're stuck. Then you got to make a decision. Are you going to try to get away with it, or do what you're told and you can't go to sleep? But you got to pay attention to what your boss says too. Are they saying that just to cover their butt? Which means if you do get caught, they will have to string you up. But maybe they're saying, "Look, officially, no, you're not supposed to sleep, but I get it. If you need to, whatever." So what you do to protect yourself, like what I used to do, is you set up little alarms wherever you need to set them up. Put an alarm on a door so that when the door opens, it makes a sound. Or I used to have a video back in the day when requisitions printed off the printer. We used to take a cup and set it upside down on the printer, right on the edge, little paper cup so it didn't weigh much. And whenever the paper, let's see if I can demonstrate it, whenever the paper would feed out of the printer, it would slowly push that cup off the printer, and that cup would hit the floor, and make a sound, and oh, I've got an order to go do. There's lots of things you can do to protect yourself. Probably even little rooms where you could go sleep that people don't know exactly how to get to, because radiology has a lot of little side rooms, you know. Oh, daughter got mono. Congrats, Chloe. Anyway, wife's got kids down at the urgent care. She's got something going on, and I'm like, you know what? We've got home strep tests. We've got home COVID tests. You know how us healthcare workers are. We don't go to the doctor for ourselves or our kids unless we absolutely have to. Well, I know we've already tested our kid for strep and COVID and everything else, and it's a Sunday and there's not a lot going on. So I said, why don't you just take her down to the quick care? We don't have a copay. Go figure it out. And sure enough, I just got the text. She's got mono. So anyway, shout out to all the people on chat. All 7 of you. Bless you for being here. This is my passion. Radiology has been my passion for over 20 years. I love it. I love all things about it, and I love to teach, which is another side hustle that I have going on. One of the main topics today is having a side hustle, so you're not always thinking about radiology or healthcare, right? You need something outside of healthcare to keep you sane. I like to educate. I like to teach. I have a conference I was asked to talk on. Where am I going? New Orleans in May. Second week of May. There's a conference. I'm going to talk about burnout for the techs. And one other topic I can't remember, but I like to teach. I like to I do some work at the local schools here with the special ed kids. So I'm telling you, you can get really good at what you do, right? I'm all for become the best tech you can be, but reserve some hours outside of that for something else. For your mental health, in case something happens to your job, lots of things, lots of reasons. So back to the chat. We're back to Victoria trying to say I'm only 35. Now I'm 50. And that's probably where this came from, was all the night shift stuff. I used to bleach this. I play Santa Claus every year. Kind of another side hustle. My hospital asked me about 5 years ago to start doing it. Actually, it was the head of nutrition. She was one of those big, every holiday she had something going on from the cafeteria. October was Oktoberfest. We'd have root beer chugging contest and all that kind of stuff. But she said, let's do Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. Will you play the part? I'll rent the uniform or whatever, the suit. So I did it the first year. It was loads of fun. Did it the second year, even more fun. By the third year, I said, let's just buy these costumes, and so we don't have to rent them. And after that, I would go around to the local churches and nursing homes playing Santa Claus. So anyway, I used to bleach this out for playing Santa, so it would all be one color. And I don't think I need to bleach it anymore. I think I'm pretty much there. It's pretty much all white. But anyway, I squirreled again. Thanks to Victoria's comment. And I'm starting clinicals next month, and we are told to make notes what various techs do and go with that. So whatever we learn at school will mostly be good for the ART exam. Oh yeah. So when you think about clinicals, I mean, we need the schools. You can't learn X-ray anymore with on-the-job training you used to. I used to work with techs. They're all gone now, but I used to work with techs that learned how to do. Like I actually worked with a handful of. There's still a few out there that have been in it for 30 years, but they're sonographers that learned how to do sonography on the job. But we need the schools because the ARRT is who gives us the license. And to sit for that license, you have to have so many hours of clinical rotations and take their test. And the test is really what the schools are for. The schools are supposed to teach us the information we need to pass that test. The clinical rotations are who actually teach us how to do the job. And they're really two separate things. The school and the hospital who teaches us how to do the job. So you almost have, you have two different worlds there. You have to keep the teachers happy, showing up on time, paying attention in class, getting good grades. Then you have to make your clinical instructors happy, showing up on time, working your butt off for free at your clinical rotation. And so, yeah, we kind of talked about it, Anna. Write your notes down, keep track of who tells you what. Another thing I kind of learned as an administrator that applies to students as well is when things happen, you really need to record it. And I'm talking mostly negative things. You need to record it somewhere where it's stored in a safe place, because if you're ever asked to go back and discuss it again, whether it's, you know, you x-rayed the wrong person and they didn't find out till later or whatever, or you got into an argument with somebody, or a patient hit you or whatever, you need to get in the habit of writing yourselves emails to yourselves, addressing it to you only. Vomit up what happened at 10:45 this morning. Bob, the x-ray tech, told me to go shoot a portable in the ICU, and I said, aren't you coming with me? And he said, no, I'm too busy. We're understaffed. You go do it. So I did, and then I did it wrong, and then I got in trouble for not having a tech with me, and I don't think that's fair because he told me to go, and I'm supposed to do what he tells me to do. You need to write that kind of stuff down and email it to yourself so that you have a copy in your email. Put names, dates, and times, and everything that you can remember. Try to leave opinion out. I don't think Bob should have told me. It doesn't matter. Just put down facts. Keep it short. Don't do it right there at your clinicals where everybody can read it. If you need to go, I need to go to the bathroom. You go into the stall, you sit down, you put it in on your phone real quick, email it to yourself, whatever you need to do. But capture these things that occur in an email to yourself so that you can go back and reference it, because it will happen. And you will get asked to go back and recant how something went down. For example, I was in my clinical rotation, and I had a clinical instructor that was being kind of a jerk about comping me on stuff. It was me and my buddy JoJo. me and JoJo were at a particular hospital in Chandler, Arizona, and the clinical instructor would look at JoJo's foot X-ray and comp him, and then look at mine and go, "Nope, you need to do a better one." Well, why do I need it? Because I said that's why. Okay, whatever. One day, JoJo and I threw up something. He got comped, I didn't. That CI walked off, and another tech walked up, and anybody could comp you off in my particular situation. Any tech could comp you off. Another tech walked up, and I said, "Hey, what do you think of that foot?" And they go, "That looks pretty good." And I go, "Would you comp it?" And they go, "Sure." And they signed the comp form, and I put it in my backpack, and I thought, that just proves my point, that Jackwagon over here is being too much of a jerk, and he needs to lighten up. And the long story made short on that is that tech that comped me just happened to mention it to another tech. "Yeah, I comped Ron off on a foot today." Well, that person was the suck up to the clinical instructor. And she ran back to him and said, "Hey, you remember that foot you said he couldn't comp on? He used that same one and got Joe Bob to comp off on it." And the CI called my school and said, he went around my back and got a comp, blah, blah, blah. And my school, now here's the thing about schools, this is fact, they don't care about you so much as they do about the clinical site. If they lose you, they'll replace you with another student. There's hundreds of you waiting to get in. If they lose a clinical site because of something a student did, you can't replace that. And schools will always protect their clinical sites more than their students. I wish that wasn't true, and maybe there's somebody out there that can honestly disagree and prove it. But my school came down on me and threatened to suspend me or kick me out of the program, whatever it was. They're like, "If this ever happens again or whatever, you're out." And they actually said, because we can't afford to lose a clinical site. Well, my recant or rebuttal to that was I never turned it in. I never turned in that comp sheet. It's not official. I didn't turn it in for credit. It's still in my backpack, so kiss my butt. So of course I couldn't say that, and actually at the time I was the trembling student going, "Oh, I can't get kicked out of the program. I better really be careful." And that's what's sad about being a student, is when you feel like you have to do what you're told, even though you feel like it's wrong because you don't want to get kicked out. It just sucks, and you got to figure out how to deal with that, because it's going to happen. You need to figure out how to draw that line in the sand and say, "Look, I'm here because I want to be here. I'm working for free. I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing what I'm told." Stick up for yourself. So, make an email to yourself that says, "On this date, this guy said I couldn't comp, even though he comped that," and whatever, and make a note to yourself, because eventually maybe I could have piled up a bunch of those and taken it to my school and said, "Look,
This clinical instructor is refusing to comp me. I'm making no progress. My peer is making tons of progress. We have the same quality exams. Maybe I could have gotten somewhere, who knows? But I'm telling you, start writing these notes to yourself so you can track what happens at your clinicals. And I'm saying that because Anna starts her clinicals next month, and they're being told to make notes about which techs do what. And that's also a way to protect yourself, because some of them are going to be wrong about what they do, and they're going to tell you wrong information, and you're going to need to be able to say who did it. Anna, thanks so much. Ron, I'm about to start studying. I will try the Pomodoro method. Good for you. Yeah, read that article. It's tons. I spent a lot of time. That's one of my bigger articles on the blog. How to have a Rad Tech week, because a lot of you don't get Rad Tech week. So I wrote a how-to guide so you can give it to your boss, or if you have a nice boss, give it to your boss and let them figure it out. But if you don't, you can do it yourself. And I show you how to get all the swag and all the food and everything covered for free. So and I've got crossword puzzles and game ideas and all that stuff on my how-to guide for Rad Tech week. So back to the chat. Nog, nurses have to clean up poop and vomit though. There's gonna come a time when you will too, brother, because they're gonna poop on you, and they're gonna throw up on you. If you ever do a BE or upper GI, or you can get barium on you, you can get feces on you, you can get urine on you, you can get I mean, there's hundreds of ways you can get stuff. It's usually on your shoes or on your pants. But you just never know. You can be in a surgery when something pops and it can spray blood. That used to be my joke too, though, is you nurses. But if you say that to a nurse, you guys have to clean up poop and we don't. You know what a nurse will say? No, I don't. That's what a CNA is for. That's what the LPNs are for. I just call them in and they have to do it. And that's what they'll tell you. Yes, they can do it themselves. And I worked for a year in the ICU as a ICU tech, it was called. And that's where I learned how to roll a patient, roll up their bed sheets and tuck them under the patient, and then roll them back. Well, and then you flop out your fresh linens, and then you roll the patient the other way, finish rolling up the dirty linens, and then unroll the clean linens. And that's how you change the sheets under a patient without getting them out of bed. I did that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and the nurses are right there wiping that stuff up, and I'm like, yeah, that's your job. That's not my job. But that's also where I saw MRSA, that it ate away a man's pelvis, and I could see his internal organs. I mean, I saw tons and tons of stuff in the ICU that I would have never seen if I had only worked in a radiology department. But I did that while I was in X-ray school. Where are we at? Nog, Victoria, tell them the cup trick. Oh, I did. So that was the cup on the printer. I don't know if I have. That's the other thing I have on my blog if you're ever bored. These memes. Somewhere in the meme list, I think I have a picture of the cup sitting up on one of the actual printers. Anyway, I don't have time to, right, how many patients have you had show up open in the front? That's not how I said to put it on, sir. Anyway, so a few departments now are doing job training like phlebotomy. You don't have to go to school for what other departments do. Do you think that will turn into job training only? Well, that's a good question. So the schools, you got to look at it from everybody's different perspectives. The schools want to open every kind of program they can think of. The vet techs are getting popular, and massage therapy is getting popular, and occupational therapy assistant is getting popular. The schools want to open anything and everything they can. So they're going to be pushing for individualized programs like phlebotomy. But phlebotomy here at the local hospital, you can absolutely get hired as a phlebotomist with no training. They will train you how to draw blood and train you how to be a phlebotomist. And there's no license required. There is a national phlebotomy license, but it's not a requirement like an x-ray license is a requirement, or like a nursing license is a requirement to do the job. So anybody can be trained on phlebotomy. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. They teach you that in CNA course now. NOG, so if I pull out 50,000 student loans over 2 years of my program and I come out of the program making only 40 to 50, that seems kind of crappy. No. So let's talk about that. There's more to it than that. First of all, try not to pull out. Did you see my article on how to pay for school without? I think I had to go to sitemap for that one. Wasn't it like 11 ways to how to pay for school? How to pass. Let's try the Control F. Ways to pay for Rad Tech school. So let's just go through them real quick for NOG, because not a lot of people know these things are out there. So of course there's trying to save up, you know, if you're lucky enough to be able to save up or have parents that help you. Work study. So work study, did I break these down? Well, let's just do the summarized, then we'll run through it and see. Work study, you can talk to your school, the financial aid, and just say, do you have a work study program? Work study means you go work hours at the school for whatever they tell you to do, and they subsidize part of your tuition. They pay it off directly. So I did it once at a university, and I worked in the kitchen making curly fries, and they paid me $7 an hour, whatever it was, for the hours that I worked, and that money went towards my tuition. They may put you in a library, they may put you, I have one daughter that was on Student Senate, and as long as she put in so many hours at the Student Senate, she got paid so much per semester. But work study may be a thing, so check that out. And then there are hospital contracts. I worked at another hospital that if you signed a 2-year contract that you would stay there for 2 years after graduation and work, they would pay your way through school. So in other words, I was a health unit coordinator or ICU tech. I signed this contract saying I'll stay here for 2 years post-graduation if you pay for my x-ray school, and then I continued to work on the weekends as an ICU tech doing 2 16-hour shifts to get 32 hours, and then went to school during the week, and they paid for part of my x-ray program. I had already had half of it paid by this time, so I didn't need the whole thing, but I signed the contract and they paid the remainder of my school. That's a work contract, and there are some of those out there you have to ask your human resource department. There's a lot more out there for nurses because they're the privileged few, but they could have something like that for x-ray, so you have to ask about that. Scholarships from off campus. If you're filling out a FAFSA, Federally Assisted Financial Student Aid, whatever it stands for, there's a bajillion scholarships. It could be for ethnicity, it could be for financial status, it could be for you're a member of an organization like a Freemason or something like that. And then scholarships, actually off campus would be something like joining the Freemasons, and the Freemasons give you a $3,000 scholarship, or the Lions Club, or there's all kinds of civic groups that you can join that will help you pay for school. And then the on campus is scholarships for doing stuff like playing on the volleyball team or whatever. So check with scholarships. And then there's grants. Many schools have grants, which is free money. I went to Arizona State for my bachelor's, and they had what they called the university grant, which all you had to do was apply for it, and it gave you $1,300 per semester, and you don't have to pay back grants. You don't have to pay back scholarships. If you break the rules of the scholarship, like say your scholarship says you have to finish the program, and if you don't finish the program, you got to pay it back, then you got to do that. You can work while going to school, which is obvious. You got to figure out how to work your schedule around your school schedule. Sell your stuff, have garage sales, whatnot. Earn as much money as you can through side hustles and things like that. Work tuition reimbursement. Sometimes you can get hired on as a tech, and part of your benefits is getting your tuition, your student loans paid off little by little. That's a benefit that's out there for at some hospitals. And then student loans, of course, subsidized, unsubsidized, and Perkins loans. But read this article, Nog, because you probably already picked your school. Yeah, I think you said you had No, that wasn't you with 7 months left. That was somebody else. That was Mr. Allen, I think. I have posts on how to pick a good school because there's a lot to read between the lines on these schools. And then I just go through each one, in more detail about how to find them and how to do them, how to make it work for you. And then figuring out private versus public, right? Public X-ray school is still like $8,000, $10,000, where private schools can be up to $60,000. So I went to private, and that's part of why I took student loans. But you get out of school a lot faster. Excuse me. That's a whole nother topic. Private school versus public school. Public schools usually have a waiting list is the problem, 2 to 3 years. So if you gotta wait 3 years to get in, and then it's 2 years for the program, you're not graduating for 5 years. Private school, you pay more to get right in and you're out in 2 years, so those next 3 years you're making an income. So, but also, Nog, when you say I spent $50,000 in student loans to get a job that pays $50,000, one of the things I think I discussed in my video, the 5 reasons that I got a job in radiology, the 5 reasons, is because you're not just making an hourly pay, right? You have callback and being on call. You may work, well, let's just say you're able to get 312s and you have 4 days off. You can pick up call shifts those 4 days off, which means time and a half, because you already made your 40 hours. So now you're on overtime working those shifts. You can go on call, which pays time and a half. Every time you get called in to help out, you can go work somewhere else. I always recommend if you're an X-ray tech, get your 312 somewhere, be a PRN somewhere else, because it starts getting your foot in the door at that place in case you ever want to leave this place. But if your hours get reduced, you can pick up more hours over here. But it's nice to have 2 gigs that you can kind of rely on just in case. But you can take call, you can be on call, you can pick up extra shifts, and you can make more than that $50,000. So if that's your offer, and then there's articles in here too, brother, about how to negotiate a higher pay. They're gonna offer you something right out of the gates. You don't have to accept that. We feel like we have to. I went to school for 2 years. So I have to have this job to pay off my loans now. You do, but the fact that they offered you the job means they want you. And maybe you only ask for a 50-cent bump. And maybe they say no. You're still going to get the job. They're not going to say, oh, you asked for 50 cents more and we don't want to give it to you and now we're not going to offer you anything. Never. That never happens. Now, I always recommend offering for more money, but don't get ridiculous. If they offer you $25 an hour, don't ask for $35. Do an analysis, look at what everybody's getting paid, ask on the Facebook groups, try and figure out what people are making, and then go from there. Usually, maybe $1 at the most, and then they counter offer, and then you accept that. But never accept your first offer. Never be afraid, and that starts you down that path of standing up for yourself. I have value. I am worth what I say I'm worth. You're only offering me $21 an hour to be an X-ray tech, when the hospital down the street offers 25. So how about you offer me 23 and I'll help you out, or whatever, however you want to do it. Check out my articles and my videos on how to negotiate. Back to the chat. So looks like we're caught up on the chat. That's awesome. Thanks everybody for chiming in. We're at 1 hour and 41 minutes. That's probably enough. I always archive these and leave them up for people to go through. We always cover a little bit different stuff every time, based on who chimes in and what's going on out in the world. The Facebook group looks like there's not any new questions there. 5 new people wanting to join. We're at 4,000 members. We got 4,000 there. We have about 2,100 or so YouTube subscribers. Oh, by the way, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. I think I can actually look at that. Where am I at? I'm at 10 thumbs up. Hey, that's awesome. I'll take that because I don't know how many views we got, but it may not have been many more than that. So thanks for that. Hit the subscribe button if you can. That would be great. You can get the job. That's from Joe versus the volcano, right? I know you can get the job, but can you let's see. You can do the job, but can you get the job? I can't remember now. Yeah, you can get the job, but can you do the job? Anyway, Joe versus the volcano there. So thanks for hitting the like button if you haven't. Subscribe as well. Stop by the Facebook group and say hello. Stop by maybe the post here. Leave a comment. Did you stop by and say hi? Were there no dumb questions? You're welcome to post them here or post them on the, or you can contact me on my blog. At the very top, there's a contact button right here. It'll take you to this page, plug in your stuff. I do get emails from time to time. I typically do a video response for the emailed questions because they get pretty lengthy. And so it's easier for me to get on here. And in fact, I think that was one of the last couple, if I went back to the YouTube channel, live, Savannah's questions right there. I spent 11, 12 minutes answering her question. It's just easier to blurt it out than it is to type it all up. I may not get to it right away, but I'll get to it, I promise. And I'll try to always come here and post when I'm going live, maybe not more than an hour or so ahead of time. But if you're in the group, you'll see when I post that. And I think if you hit the little bell, wherever that guy's at, it'll notify you when I put something up there. So definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel and the Facebook group, and check out the blog. It's a good place to look for answers. You can go to Reddit if you want and check out the radiology blog. They used to do a weekly Q&A section, and I would go in there and answer a lot of questions. I don't know if they're still doing that. It's really a lot of memes. First day, good job. A lot of memes. But somewhere in here there's that same meme again. Well, turning into more memes than anything else. But there was a thing they would turn on about asking your questions. And senior techs would come in and I don't even see it now. All it is memes anymore. Anyway, join that if you want. That's Reddit. And then LinkedIn, don't forget, Radiology Technologist Career Discussion Advanced and Membership. You can join as a student or as a tech, whatever, administrator. I don't check this as often, but I do get notified when somebody posts in here. So you're welcome to join that. That takes care of that. And so we'll wrap it up. B-Raw, you're welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I don't see any new questions, so I think we'll kill it at an hour 45. Don't forget to, one of the things I typically try to go over is the week in review on Aunt Minnie. If you don't know Aunt Minnie, I got no affiliation with Aunt Minnie, but they're the only website out there that kind of covers the majority of what we do. There are probably 18 radiology magazines, I'll call it, and all magazines are online now, and they each cover different things. But Aunt Minnie has been around the longest, or one of the longest, and you can even I go right to the home page, featured news and radiology news, and just kind of see a couple pages worth. CT radiomics help to predict pancreatic cancer. Well, we kind of knew that. Ultrasound jostles for bigger role in screening dense breasts. Well, we know that's kind of coming. CCTA shows promise for managing patients with heart disease. Yeah, we kind of know that. Radiologists can help close the gender pay gap. Well, okay. What MRI sequence is best for brain volumetry? That might be an interesting read. Ultrasound on breast again. Cancer deaths increasing. Hello, COVID. Vaccine. AI predicting stuff. Yeah. Should breast ultrasound scans after COVID vaccines be postponed? But that might be interesting. Are you saying that vaccines are affecting the breast? No, I thought all they did was help us. 7T proton MRI. That could be interesting. And go to the second page and see what's there. There's CT stuff, more ultrasound, point of care ultrasound, very interesting technology. AI, yeah, of course it's going to get better. More breast, using CT to unwrap a pharaoh and see what's inside of it. I love archaeology. That's forensic radiology. I've got articles on my blog about forensic radiology. Way cool stuff. So anyway, check it out. And if you want, you can go to the communities and just dial in on your specific modality. If you're a CT tech, just go straight to the CT community. And it talks all about what's going on in CT. If you're ultrasound, same thing. There's a ultrasound community, MRI, molecular imaging, women's imaging. Check it out. I'm going to wrap it up. Make sure nothing else at the bottom. Okay, we're good. Thanks for helping me test out my new stream. We're going to kick into ending soon. But even though that's up, you should still be able to hear me. I've got to figure out how to replace my trusty Yeti microphone. I'm sure it was much better than my Logicam camera's microphone. But I'll keep trying to get better. I'll keep trying to provide you more information. You keep coming and hitting the like button, subscribing, share the channel, share the information that I'm out here. Tell your friends about it. And we'll keep improving together. Constantly improving our position. Take care and have a great rest of your weekend. Start getting ready for Monday. Headed back to work for most of you. Take care.